Wow, that music just is uplifting. Gets you going, gets the blood pounding there. Welcome. This is episode 4 of our new open conversations with international coaches. And there are 4 international coaches here with us today. Let's get some introductions going. And I'm going to start in the bottom. Um, to my left, the way I see it, but I'll bet you're on the right for everybody else. Gerald, tell us who you are and what you do.
Hi, my name is Gerald Alexander, and basically, I'm from Scotland, and I'm located in Scotland at the moment. And it's just all about reaching out and giving people a sense of direction, and helping them along the journey. As I feel, a lot of people are confused at the moment with the world that we're living in, especially post-pandemic. So it's just about, where they see themselves and what direction they're moving in, and just to give them a helping hand to get them out of the current rat race.
Awesome, very good. Shelly Ann, you're next.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Shelly Ann Edwards Barron. I am from Trinidad and Tobago, and I am a gratitude guide and habit coach. And what I do is to use something called the gratitude strategy to help my clients sort through the noise of all the drama that's happening in their lives so they can identify the habits that they can implement to get to where they need to go and actually enjoy their journey as they move towards success.
Excellent. And Cass, you're up now.
Hi, I'm Cass. I'm a holistic life mentor in Ontario, Canada. I work with clients when they're feeling stuck, when they're looking to make changes in their life and move forward on their journey. I run catastrophe.com, and catastrophe is the idea of finding peace within the chaos. Life is chaotic. You're never going to change that, but it's still important to make goals and move forward and live the life that you want to live. I work both in person in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, and I also work virtually with my clients.
Wonderful. And I'm Stephen B. Henry. I'm here in Kansas, in the heartland of the USA. I'm a digital content creator, online presence consultant, business success guide, and personal development mentor. I'm available, approachable, and affordable. Feel free to contact me at any time for a no charge, no obligation consultation to determine if I fit your needs. And remember, the time to hire your guide is before you get lost in the woods. And with that, we're going to get started on today's topic, which is how trust factors in. And Shelly Ann, I believe you said something about how it applies to the client-coach relationship. Let's start with you and with that idea.
Yes, because I think when we were discussing the topic and what we would like to work on and discuss with trust, my mind immediately went to how important trust is in any relationship, but most particularly as we're coaches, we're talking about that client-coach relationship. Um, we often hear discussions about the client being able to trust the coach, that the coach knows what they're doing and guiding them through the process, that they can actually help. But I am also thinking about the other side. Sometimes as coaches, do we trust our clients, and do we trust that they're going to put in the work and to get where they need to be and that sort of thing? So I'm really looking forward to hearing all the thoughts and discussing that, because I often wonder about that. Sometimes, we have clients, and I've seen posts where I saw somebody posted once, I love it when my clients do the work. And while that is an important thing to celebrate, what about when the clients don't do the work? What happens in that and in the relationship there?
Yeah, I've seen it kind of all around the map on that. And another thing that I would throw out into the discussion when we're dealing with a client coach trust, do we as coaches trust ourselves to deliver the right material and to work properly with the client? Um, which certainly applies in many cases. We have to be willing to examine the relationship and move ourselves sometimes a little bit one way or another because the coach needs something a little different than what we may have expected when we first start working with them. It's one of the reasons in my introduction I mentioned about a initial call, an onboarding call, so to speak, to see if we're a good fit. And determining that fit, examining that fit, is part of the whole trust relationship, I think. Um, Cass, how do you feel about that area, that one-on-one trust?
I think that it's really a process that you have to go through to build that trust of give and take back and forth and see where you're both sitting. And I definitely feel I also do a free 30-minute discovery call to see how that fit is. And I think that one of the things is that honesty and authenticity that matters. Like, are you the coach that you are? One of the things I really value, I'm at a clinic for my medical care, and they're a teaching clinic, and so they often have students there, and I mean residents. um, and one of the things that I value in that relationship is that sometimes they pull out their phone and look things up. They're like, you know what, I'm not 100% sure about the side effects of this medication. Let me look in further detail. And they're a doctor who is still in the learning process, but also we sort of expect that, oh, they must know everything. But it's really valuable to me when they acknowledge that they're human, they haven't read everything, they may actually need more information. And I like to do some of that with my clients too. Like if I have a whole toolkit that I use, I have a lot of different tools in it, and they may apply to various situations. But if I come across something that's maybe a little unique, I like to be able to say, hey, I'm going to do some research in this and I'm going to get back to you on something that we can work on together because it seems like it's really important to you. And I really value that in being able to work with clients. And so in regard to, do I trust them? I think that's a difficult place to be. Like, are they doing the work is really important. And being able to say, hey, we're gonna work for the next 5 sessions together, but then we're gonna reassess. I think it's important to be able to know that you have a point where you're looking at, am I doing the work? Are they doing the work? Are we effectively working together? Because if you're not, it might be time to pass them on to a different coach who might work with them differently. And that's what I love about this group, is that not only here do I have 3 other coaches that have very different methods than mine that I can pass people on to, but there's also another network that I work with that has more coaches. So, there's always somebody that's going to be the right fit.
I want to say something here, something you mentioned, Cass, that just, like the lights went off and, confetti fell from the ceiling kind of thing. One of the things that to me really builds trust is when you recognize that the person you're dealing with, they are interested in your well-being. And if it means that they have to go do some more reading or go and check something, they're going to do it before jumping in to the situation because they want to make sure that what you're getting is the best. So they're not going to pretend that they know and just jump in because they have to look good. It's about you as the client, you as a friend, you as whoever, whatever relationship we're in with the trust. They care enough about you to
Something you
do
said
what's necessary.
something you said just before we went live, and you just reiterated it in a different way, is that the definition of trust is feeling secure in the relationship. And I think that that's exactly what you just said, is that, you know, the person trusts that this relationship is a secure, safer space, and you're going to go and make sure that you have all the pieces before you start laying things out.
Yeah.
Yeah, good points. Gerald, do you have something to jump in there with?
Not at the moment. I was going to jump in, and then things were getting said, like what I was going to say, and then other things were, and I keep jumping back and forth, you know, like about since the client get brought into the trust. Whereas no, I think it's about us trusting ourselves that we, like you mentioned yourself, can we provide the help? You know, can we trust ourselves for providing the help? And then the client understanding that, as you in your words, we're there to guide, you know, and there's only one way out, really, you know, and it's the only way that we know. So if the other person's not trusting in us and isn't following us at that point, which has been a choice to, I mean, basically, the four of us do the same thing from four different points in the world. We're there to help, you know, and it's basically, all four of us would say, make sure that you're following the right person, you know, but don't be afraid to ask for help, you know.
Yes, especially ask for help. I think that's a good sign that the client trusts the coach if they can find it in themselves to open up and ask for help. You have to trust somebody if you're going to seriously ask them for help, because that's putting you in a position of vulnerability. And the coach, you know, the client is already vulnerable. The fact that they've come forward and hired a coach and said, "Hey, I need help," that has put them in a general state of vulnerability. And then to dig into it deeper and to actually ask for help, specific help, in the moment, can be difficult. It can be hard to do that. A lot of my clients are coaches, and I've been referred online several times as the coach's coach. And so I work with a number of coaches, and you know, coaches don't want to put themselves into that position. A lot of coaches don't hire a coach because they don't think they need one. And in many ways they don't want one because they don't want somebody else looking into what they do or evaluating what they do. And I have a couple of coaches that I turn to when I need help, and I understand that because it could be hard for me to, you know, I'm pretty steeped in my ways. I've been around a while, and even the coaching part of things, which I didn't figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up until I was turning 60. So, I've been doing the coaching now for about 12 years, and that's 12 years. That's a lot of time. Most of the coaches I deal with haven't been working in the real world for 12 years. Um, you know, uh, After having left school, and it is difficult. You want to feel that you know the answers. You have what you need to share, and perhaps there's almost an expectation that your client will follow you and will listen to you. But you have to be willing to adapt and adopt new things. Cass, you mentioned tools, and we are like any other service person. We have our toolkit. Now it's not a bright red bucket with a whole bunch of physical tools in it. Nonetheless, they are tools, and even the things that we've learned to deal with, the ideas and the modalities, are tools, and we adapt them. We keep them sharp. We keep them clean. We gather them together so we can find them when we need them. And there is a process there We have to trust ourselves with our process, and the clients have to trust us that we're using the right tools and the right processes, and that we're taking the time to understand them. Go ahead.
And that we replace them when they're outdated.
Yes.
I think it's Gerald who talks often about if you knew your craft 5 years ago, but you haven't upgraded in those 5 years, then you're out of date, right? You just don't know. I was going to say that I've done a lot of therapy in my life. I've needed therapists to help me get to where I am. And one of the things that early on I learned is that once you're able to establish that true sense of trust with a coach or a therapist or somebody that you're working with on that level, the next person that you work with down the line, it gets easier. That time that it takes to establish the trust gets shorter and shorter, because you realize that being vulnerable is okay with this person or the next person who's there to help you. And in the beginning, it can take a week, 2 weeks, more, a month. And as you work with more people, it gets easier.
Yeah, and I suspect, and at least for me, one of the reasons it gets easier is because now I can recognize in someone what makes them trustworthy because I've had the experience of it. And so when I get into a new situation, new relationship, I can do a quicker assessment and say, well, okay, I'm getting the same kind of feedback from this person. I'm getting the same kind of responses. This is someone that I can probably reach out to and trust a little bit more. And then, there's the testing phase that we go through. And I'm wondering then, we talk about coaches having coaches. Is it possible that when you have a coach, as a coach, it gives you a greater perspective of what the client is going through and understand that whole trust factor in the relationship?
I think that's a really valid point. I definitely think that when you get to be in that vulnerable position with another coach, that you can absolutely appreciate what the client's going through.
Yeah, I think that is powerful. I have been very, very fortunate in my life to have a number of good coaches, and starting very early on, long before I was ever going to be a coach myself, I had people step in and guide me and help me, and I brought people in. I had financial relationships with them. I paid for coaches, and I had other people that coached me. I don't know why. They just gave of their services and helped me. And I've had people say to me, "Well, why should I pay for a coach or a mentor? There's so many out there that are free, and I can get all the coaching I need for free." And that's true. It's definitely true. And I certainly over the years have had some amazing coaches for free. But I've also paid for coaching because when you have someone who's there for free, and again, the trust comes into it, you have to trust them, but got to be a different expectation. If you're not paying them, you can't expect them to always be there when you need them or want them. And so, sometimes you need to find a person to work with who's the right person for you, who's a good person for you, and you pay them to keep them around and have them there at your call so that you can talk to them when you need something. Um, I have a number of levels of coaching programs, and I know that some people turn away from me when they find out who I am and how long I've been in business and what I've been doing, and it's because they think I'm going to cost too much. And that's why I say that I'm approachable, I'm affordable, and I'm available. And the affordable factor in there is put in there deliberately because I have different levels of coaching programs that I will work with people for. And I've had in the last while up until now, including now. Uh, I have had four top coaches available to me. Um, and in the spirit of show and tell, I'm going to share three of their books just to suggest to people that listen to this that they can reach out and look at these people. Now, Gerald and I have talked together and made a little bit of fun over it of the time that Tony Robbins stepped into an elevator with me. We were talking about elevator pitches and what they were and how they came about and so on. And I said, I have a pretty famous elevator pitch. And Tony Robbins stepped into an elevator and stuck out his hand and said, "Hi, I'm Tony Robbins." And that's his elevator pitch. So, he's very positive. He's very confident. He trusts that you know who he is. And that's his approach. And it certainly worked on me. Now, Tony Robbins is not one of my coaches. I have been a coach for one of his coaches. He obviously, at the scale that he works at, cannot do all of the work himself, and he has associate coaches, a large number of them that work for him. And I have had the privilege of being a coach to one of his coaches, and so that process went along. I consider three contemporary successful people to be coaches that I seek out for advice. Um, Now, I can't afford any of the three of them. They charge huge sums and work with big executives and corporations and so on. Probably one of the highest paid coaches in the coaching space is Brendan Burchard, and his book Millionaire Messenger. Brendan Burchard is worth looking at. He has a very interesting style and approach, and I commend his work to you that you take a look at it. He publishes a lot of material on YouTube for free, and you can get access to it, and you can get some really good advice out of there. A marketing coach that I kind of picked up along the way when I sort of decided that I wanted to get out and launch some webinars and some other products and so on is Jeff Walker, and he is the king of launch. His program, the Product Launch Formula, is one of the most amazing coaching programs that you can get involved with. It's expensive. His book is a little bit, well, a lot cheaper and worth the $20 or so, whatever it costs, instead of the thousands to take his Product Launch Formula. But working with him individually and personally is key. I'm on his newsletter list. I receive posts, mailings from him on a regular basis, and I really recommend people get signed up for that, because it is a great way to get insight and information from these people. And then the third one that I'll share today is a book called Opportunity from a fella called Evan Pagan, and he also does a lot of work on YouTube, so you can pick up material of his for free. But whoever they are, those three may not be good for you. They really work for me, and I follow them intensively because I've come to trust them over the years in working with them, and I trust what they're sharing with me. When I first started, some of the stuff was kind of way out there for me. Some of the stuff was a different way than I approach things, and I tested it and played with it and worked with it to the point that I realized, hey, these guys know what they're talking about, and I'm able to trust them, and I'm able to take that material in. So I encourage everybody listening to this today, and that could be today. Here we are, the 11th of October? Is it the 11th or the 12th already? It's the 11th.
12.
Oh, 12th. Well, I've lost a day in there. So everybody's a day ahead of me. That's good. But you may be later in the future. You may be watching this in a replay, and that's fine too. Whatever day it is, I encourage you to get a couple or three or four coaches that you can follow that will deliver material on a regular basis that you can use. But I also encourage you to hire a personal coach, somebody you can rely on and meet with on a regular basis. If you're a coach yourself, it's probably even more important that you do that. Do you know that that psychiatrists, okay, doctor level psychiatrists have psychiatrists? It's part of their meme or their their corporate. Uh,
Yeah, it's actually mandatory. It's not
uh,
something that they can say, well, okay, now I don't want one. It's it's required.
yes, and that's so important, because they need to be doing what they're asking other people to do, and they need to be staying current in that regard. And so, the whole life coach area, I use that term loosely. We're all life coaches of one sort or another, and that's the general term that applies to the kind of coaching that we're doing: business coach, mindset coaching, gratitude coaching, holistic life coaching, all of these things that we're, however we put a fine point on it, we're all life coaches. I use the term guide and mentor and consultant, but we're still, coaches. And it's a kind of an open, loosey goosey kind of situation because so many jurisdictions don't have any regulation for it. And so many
Yeah.
types of coaching, even in jurisdictions that might have some regulation, they don't cover all the types of coaching. And so anybody and their mother can get into coaching, and they do, and a lot of them have something in their heart to share. They're spiritual coaches. They're committed. They're emotional. They're driven, but they don't have the training or the technique, or they don't know the tools. Their toolbox is pretty much empty, and they could do so much better with what they have spiritually to share if they had the techniques. Now, I'm not saying burden yourself down and lose the spiritual connection. Not all techniques will be right for you. Not all processes will be right for you. But
Can
there
I
are.
interrupt?
Please, please.
I want to something you mentioned, and I feel like we can explore a little bit more because it's very important. That idea of testing and checking to see how things work. Um, my when you were talking about the three coaches that you follow, my question was going to be, why do you trust them? What is it about these three that you trust above all others that you're going to be following these three and probably checking with others, but not as often, but these three you follow? What created that level of trust in that relationship for you? And you pretty much explained it, but I'd like us to kind of go into it a little bit more because there is something to be said about exploration. And even with a client, when you're working with a client and you're moving toward their end goal, to a large extent, you're exploring because you're trying to find what works. And while you have your toolkit and you have an excellent starting point, each individual client is different. And so there are times, like Cass said, you step back and say, okay, I need to read up a little bit more on this. I need to check into this a little bit more. And for me, that is a very valuable part of the building of trust. And sometimes it feels like some people see it as an area that breaks trust. So I wanted to kind of, check in with that a little bit. I feel it's an important point that needs to be reiterated.
I have an experience that I can share that I think I mentioned at the start that I used to have four that I followed contemporarily. Contemporarily, I followed four people. I stopped following one of them because that trust was broken. And more than creating the trust, I think sometimes we kind of accept that there's trust. We just allow there to be an openness between us, and we carry on with that, and it grows and builds and establishes itself more firmly, or it breaks. And so we discard that. And pretty quickly, I think you can find out if it's going to break. Um, and unless the person who is coaching you, sharing with you, is kind of a slick, grifter, um, and you're not really getting the real feeling, the real support from them. But um, I won't mention the name of the coach that I don't use anymore. They're a fairly big, well-known coach, and a lot of people may find great value there. I found value from what they shared openly in public, and so I actually signed up for a program with them. And it was not a cheap program. I invested a fair bit of money to sign up with them. Now, just before I did that, I had been kind of looking around for a coach. I had relocated across the continent. I was in a new place, new location, new family, new friends, and I did not really have the connections with other coaches that I'd had in the past. And my processes changed as well. So I really needed something different. And I followed this guy a little bit. I'd known of him before, and I thought that was good. Um, but I had experienced an issue with a coach that I felt was really delivering improper material. At least for me, it was totally the wrong fit, and I had rejected that person. That's a fifth person in my description here. I had totally rejected that person. So then, when I was working with the four of these people, and the one had come out with a program that I felt I could afford, um, Brendan Burchard has a program I would love to take, but it's $10,000, and that's just a little bit out of my range for taking a weekend program. But a lot of people take it and benefit greatly from it, and so I would love to take it. Instead, I got it on audio book for less than uh, considerably less than the price of the weekend. Um, but I went with this person and I paid the money, and I went to it was a group introduction session. They didn't have a one-on-one session. He's at that level of authority that he was able to bring us in and get the money for the program before we had any kind of an onboarding process. And then he had this group meeting to explain how things were going to work, what we were going to do, and so on. And we were going to have one-on-one time. And this all looked really good and felt really, really great. I went to my first one-on-one session only to discover not only was it not the coach I thought I was hiring, but it was this guy that I had dumped months before as being a totally bad fit. He had given up his personal business because he was losing clients hand over fist, and he had signed up with this expert coach as one of his juniors, one of his process coaches. And I happened to, out of the group of them, I happened to draw him talk about
Talk about a short straw, right?
yeah, synergy or something there, but law of attraction. But anyway, it was such a really a heartbreaking process that I simply had to abandon the coaching, and therefore I abandoned that guy, even though he was probably a really good coach. But the person that I got was not a good fit for me. So I think there is a real value for all of us. We have our onboarding or our discovery calls that we can work with the person. That's not only for us to find out if the client is a worthwhile client to work with. It goes the other way, that the client needs to find out, are we a good fit as a coach for them? And that's important. If you don't feel good about your coach is going to give you some hard times. Your coach is not always going to be peaches and cream. Sometimes there's going to be some nettles and thistles in there that you're going to have to deal with, because if you know everything and if you know how everything should be done, then you don't need a coach, do you?
If you're doing it already, then you
Yeah.
don't need a coach. Yeah.
Right. So you need to listen to what your coach is sharing with you, and you need to try it. But then you also need to be honest with your coach and come back and say, that didn't work for me. That's not happening. And then we can find another way, because any good coach knows multiple ways to tackle things. We have extensive toolboxes that come not only from our coaching experience, but from our life experience. Most coaches, there are a few young ones that don't have a lot of life experience. That doesn't make them bad coaches at all. But most coaches tend to be a little older, and most of them have had extensive life experience that they bring to the table. I'm kind of you know taking charge of this session today, and I want to give everybody a chance. But I want to share one story with you. I'm a storyteller. Um, Shelley Ann, talked about checking and making sure that on an ongoing basis that things are right. And not long ago, I was sitting in a favorite cafe having a coffee, and I was. It was one of these cafes that had a counter with the little stools that you can turn around on. The kids sit on them and they spin around. And that was down one side of it was a long, deep place, and down the other side were booths. And I was in the last booth in the back corner, and the waitress had come down and served me the coffee and gone away. I'd like to sit there, sort of in the gunfighter chair, and have my back to the wall, and then I can observe everything that goes on. And it's not for my own protection; it's for my own edification, so I can see and learn from other people. And just over to the side, there was a wall and the doors to the washrooms, and between the two doors was a payphone. You may not remember those, some of the people listening here, but we used to have these big boxes that hung on the wall, or they were in a booth. I think they put them in booths so that Superman could change his clothes there quickly. But they were often on a wall in places where people congregated, especially in restaurants. And I was sitting there sipping my coffee, and this young fella came running in through the door, and quickly up, to the back of the restaurant where I was sitting, and he grabbed the phone, dropped in a quarter. Used to be a dime, but then towards the end they were a quarter. And in fact, it used to be a nickel, but that predates me, even as old as I am. That was back in the 1800s, I think. But he grabbed the phone and he dials a number, and he's waiting and he's waiting, and then he said, "Can I talk to the services department, please?" And they obviously put him through, and he said, "Hi, I hear you've got a job opening." Oh, you don't? Oh, well, I'm qualified for the job there in your internal services department, and I would really like to put in an app. Oh, you've already got somebody who's good at the job. Oh, I see. Well, would it be possible for me to put an application in anyway, just in case he doesn't work out as well as you? Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I guess I'll try somewhere else. And he hung up the phone. And I looked up and I said, "Gee, son, I'm sorry you didn't get the job." And he looked at me with a smile on his face and he said, "I've already got the job. I was just checking."
That might be one of the tools we have in our toolkit, something to get reassurance that we're a reliable source.
Reassurance. That's a good word.
I wanted to say that having a coach, especially when you are a coach, is a tool in your toolkit. So, when you're a client, you're going to have primary care, general practitioner, probably. You're going to maybe have a therapist. You might have a psychiatrist, a peer support worker. There's all kinds of different things that you could have in your life, and a coach is one of those tools because they're going to offer different services to you. And so knowing what to come to your coach for, trusting that they will only service you the way that they're able, is, it's a big part of coaching and building that trust.
I'll just jump in, seeing as how I've been so quiet today. Like it just seems like this. I had no idea when we decided what we were going to talk about this week that this was going to be such a complex subject. I mean, no idea at all. I mean, like we talk about how everything, like when we talk about focus and we talk about all the different subjects and how they all intertwine, we can't just stay focused on the one, they're all intertwined. Whereas this one is just a jar of worms. It really is. I mean, and I think anybody who's just through synchronicity is just listening in this to four coaches and seeing that how difficult it is for them, you know, when it's coming to trust and what other people should be looking for. And I think the benefit from this is doing your own research and trusting that you're hiring the right coach. And then you've got to trust, you need that trust so that you can't fail and blame the coach. You need to be committing yourself. And I think it's a biggie that we all need our own coaches as well. We all need our own mentors because that trust, you know, we need somebody to trust, you know, to reach out and get our guidance. And then once again, I think the biggest fool is them that think they know it all. You know, and it's the same with a fool. There's been an idiot. I mean, there's being nice, having a positive mental attitude, and always giving the benefit of the doubt to anyone. Whereas if they shit on us, then shame on them. But if we allow them to do it again, shame on us for letting them. You know, so we're constantly, you know, like we've got to stay in our lane and be who we are. Clearly, know who we are. You know, so this is very, very complex. But
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
honestly,
I agree with you. I agree with you because initially I was thinking, okay, client trust and coach trust, but then what I'm hearing is in the client coach relationship, we have the client trusting the coach, client trusting themselves, coach trusting client, coach trusting themselves, and then there is trust in the process. And so there's a lot of trust happening. And I feel like if we take it from one perspective only, then we'd be missing the bigger picture of how everything works together. And so, as you guys were speaking, the thought came to my mind based on what you were saying about being okay with making the decision and then also being okay if you want to change the decision. So you trusted this person, things did not work out the way you would have intended. It's okay to say, all right, I'm going to put an end to this and try something else or try another situation, try another coach. Um, it should be clear enough where you can say, hey, um, can you recommend anybody who has this, wants, who can help me with this specific thing or that specific thing? It's quite a kind of worms, as you said, Gerald. It's huge.
I wanted to jump in there and say you just said it in a different way that you should be able to jump in there and say. There's some vitamins that only work when they're in combination, and like calcium and magnesium, right? You've got to have one for the other one to work. And I think that when it comes to trust, that other piece is communication. Absolutely, you need to be able to have open lines of communication in order to build that trust. That's where the vulnerability comes in. You have to speak your truth. You have to share it and put it on the line with the person that you're working with. And you have to be verbose when you do that. You need to bring in all the pieces because you need to know what you're working with. So I think that trust and communication and honesty come into play. Those three are sort of the pillars, or as I like to think of it, the tripod that, if you pull one away, you can communicate about lots of untrue things and a person will trust you based on those untruths. But if you're honest, then you can stand on those three pillars. But if you pull one away, it's going to fall down.
Yeah, and
Well,
I
that's
wanted
really
to go back to, so I want to say this before I forget because I wanted to say it before and then I forgot. When Steven, you were talking about the trust was broken in that relationship with the coach that you stopped following and so on. One of the issues that I saw there is that you engaged with something and you weren't given all the details, so you expected one thing, but you were given something else. And so being clear and open and honest up front, this is what is likely to happen. So you're engaging with me. I would probably meet you once, and then you would be working with my staff to help support you. It's very different from come and engage with me, and then you walk into the room and you don't see the person you engaged with.
Yep. And it's that honesty. Um, the coach that I rejected, not the junior coach, but the major coach that I rejected, he only did one small thing. He was he still is a very good and influential coach, but that little thing broke the trust. So the rest of it was meaningless. I could not comfortably take in from him, um, and feel that I in the future that I would be treated properly. So I had to leave. That's a very personal thing. Other people are in that situation. They're working with his juniors and they're happy with it. And the fact that it has his name back of what's being done makes them feel comfortable, and that's good. And I've just used that word twice, and you've used it once, and I think Cass used it once very recently. Um, the comfort zone. One of the jobs of a good coach is to get people out of their comfort zone. We don't move forward when we're sitting being very comfortable. We have to kind of get a thorn, in our butt to move us ahead. And sometimes a coach has to be that thorn or bring that thorn into the picture. And it's not always easy. And some people immediately take offense at it. And sometimes the coach can do something subtle, small, that they don't even realize would offend the person. But because of that client's upbringing, geography, attitude, so many different variables, something they do might be offensive. And so if things are uncomfortable, and especially if they go to be very uncomfortable, then again, Cass, communication is so correct. The trust implies communication so that you can say, hey, Steve, this isn't working for me, or hey, Steve, I can't deal with that. That's a problem. Can we look at this a different way? And when you open that communication, then solutions can be found, because a good coach has multiple tools, has multiple ways to use the same tool. A wrench in the traditional mechanical tool business, a wrench can be used to turn a nut on a bolt, and that's its design. But a good heavy wrench can be used to drive a nail in a pinch. It's not necessarily the best use for the wrench, but it can be done. Sometimes you have to find a different tool. I know on many occasions I've used a big flat blade screwdriver to get the blade into a place where I couldn't get a hammer and get the blade on top of the nail, so I can hit the screwdriver with the hammer, transfer that downward motion to the blade, and move the nail down to reseat a nail that is in a little, a difficult to reach place. And that's a mechanical example of where you can legitimately use a different tool than it's designed for to make something else happen. And a good coach has a lot of those examples and experiences and can find those solutions as we work with our clients to make things happen. A
I
lot of
think
that comes from experience. Yeah, go ahead, Cass.
I think it's important to go back to that checking piece of seeing if it's a good fit, because you made me think, if all the only tool you have is a hammer, then everything else looks like a nail. And so if you're going to a coach who only is very, very niche down to a very specific thing, they may assume that they need to be working on that with you, and that might not be something that you need to work on. So that checking, that communication, that honesty, being able to do some introspection and ask for what you need.
That's, I think, a really good point. Something that um, I participate in when I work with my clients, but I wouldn't have thought of it in those terms. And I think you're absolutely right. A coach looking for a coach should look for a broad niched coach. Um, Shelly Ann, what is the term that Chijioki uses?
Oh, multi-potentialite.
Multi potentialite, exactly. Um, a good coach, an experienced coach, now it's not always the case. A good coach may have decided to coach within a very narrow niche, and that's perfectly fine. But if you're a coach and you're looking for training in your niche, you may not even need a coach for that. You may need an educator or an instructor, a trainer in particular. But if you're looking for a coach and you have a given niche, the coach that you need may not even be current in your niche. It isn't about the material that you're coaching or you're teaching, it is about the methodology and the process. And a good coach can give a broader base on those tools, can fill your toolbox and help you move ahead. It's up to you to know and learn your craft. But
Yeah,
the
and I
mo-
think, go ahead, you didn't finish.
I was just going to say that I was just going to wrap up the sentence with the modality of getting it done is where the coach comes in.
Yeah, I was just so eager to say that because you said something there that, again, light bulbs and so on. It's like, yes. The thing about what a coach actually does comes up in this situation because a coach is not meant to give you the answers. And that's the thing that as coaches, sometimes we need to keep that in mind. We're not here to tell clients what to do. We're here to empower clients to come to their own discovery and own their own decisions to make the changes that they need. So we're supporting that. We're supporting their discovery and we're providing options and avenues and skills to help them through that process. And so for example, I hear people say a lot, um, they don't want a business teacher who has never had a business. I mean, there are different philosophies where this is concerned, but there's a lot that you could learn still from someone who probably has not had a business. What are you looking for exactly? What do you need? What do you want to get out of this situation? That impacts heavily on the idea of trust and that client coach relationship.
I think that's what's making this very difficult to answer. There is no one solution because trust
Yeah.
is developed, is grown. We just have to, whoever's looking for help has to put their hand up and take some action and trust in themselves and commit to themselves and and the rapport and the trust has to be developed and grown. And we can't be looking for, or the client or anybody can't be looking for the mistakes or what could go wrong. This is a very, very hard one. Where is their focus? Are you looking for a fault that the coach has? Are you looking for a weakness? You have to have faith and build that rapport and respect and confidence through honesty and results.
I think that's a really key word that goes back to that checking, right? The results. Are you getting results from the work that you're doing on both sides, right? Is the client doing the work? Is the coach doing the work? Are you coming together and building towards results? And starting off with what results are you looking for? And knowing that sometimes that's going to change mid-course.
A big one that you emphasize a lot is like the acronym for team. Together, everyone achieves more. Two brains are better than one. And if one's got more experience in your niche or whatever area you're looking for help for guidance, I mean, like the example in the woods, um, you just jump into a coach that's saying, I'll get you out of here. Once you start moving in that direction and begin to see more light, and you get more confidence in yourself, and then you can start being more specific. Do I want to get out on the north side of the woods or the south side? Or would I want to get out into? Why do I want out? So it's about a journey, Steve, as you're always saying. Success is a journey, not the destination.
Absolutely, absolutely. How are we doing on time here? We like to keep these tight to an hour. We just about are there.
3 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get around the table again. Just a last bit of input. Shelley-Ann, go ahead. You've shared some amazing things today that seem to have been eureka moments for you. The light bulbs turning on, but
Yes.
they're really good light bulbs. So you've shone
Yeah.
some light on some areas. How would you wrap everything up?
Well, in terms of trust, I think going into the situation, I really, really loved what Gerald said about what do you really want? Are you looking for faults or are you looking to get results and to get help? So what do you want? That is a very important starting point. And open communication with this is what I want. If you're not sure, being open to the fact of having a discussion and this, figuring it out with the assistance of the coach. That to me is really where the trust begins, recognizing that this person can help me, but I do have to work with the situation. They're not going to tell me the answer, even though sometimes they can. The point of all of this is for me to become and to be and to grow and taking it from that perspective.
Gerald, follow up on that. You were mentioned there, and I think that's an area that I've heard you talk about quite often. Pick up on it and wrap it up
I
for
think
us.
it's pretty much like begin with the end in mind, and for the student and the coach to be working together, especially with that initial conversation. It's like what do you want before we even begin this journey? What are you looking for from this? And I think, like you touched on it earlier on, Shelley-Ann, which I'm very big on. We can never really tell them what to do. It's all about empowering them and making them think, hmm, that's what I want, or that's it. And it's not so much when you said there, even although we can, but we really can't, because it's about empowering them as a human being, as an exquisite or unique human being. No two are alike. We can all achieve our success, but that success is different for every single one of us. What we can do is share our tools, and our roadways and our pathways, and success leaves tracks, and a helping hand, and enjoy the journey together, because we grow every day too with our students, and being passionate about what we do. If we don't know the answer, as opposed to maybe like just Googling it, maybe we could cover more within that client period's time and make a note of Googling that outside of that time and coming back, and learning from that, and maybe like we should touch on that more often. Like I see what you can help me there, and maybe is this it's all about the journey, Steve, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's enjoying. The only thing that we've got control of is now, and if we can just be focusing on what we can do now with what we've got, with who we've got round about us, and making in moving in it, making our decisions round about where we plan to, who we're becoming. Yeah, having a sense of direction. Without a sense of direction, everything doesn't matter. Just put the lid on that jar.
Yeah, that's
The lid
your
has
that's your that's your catchphrase, a sense of direction, and you are so right. It's all about the vector. We need that. Cass.
I'll pick up on what Gerald was saying about how, can we really tell them? And my catchphrase is, "This is your life. This is your story. What will the next chapter be?" Right. So that's where I want to scaffold you in working with your journey, and what is that end result, or what is that first step? How are we going to get there? And just pulling that back around to trust, I think. The definition that Jillian used, or a pre-conversation of feeling secure in the relationship, I think that's really where that it all goes back to. That relationship with coach and client, or coach and coach, feeling secure and trusting.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And Gerald refers to what is it you want, and I have found many times when I work with clients, they don't know what they want. You ask them, what is it you want, and they have kind of a vague idea, but they probably wouldn't be coming to you in the first place if they absolutely knew and they already had their sense of direction pinned down. They know what they want to want. I had a coach myself once who used to refer to wannabes. They want to be something, they want it, and they have an idea of what they want, but they don't really know what it is they want out there, what that end goal is. And so you have to help them. You have to open the choices to them. Comes back to choices again. And the client has to trust in you enough to realize that you're going to give them opportunities for this. And as you progress, the coach may be leading you or opening doors in a certain direction, but discovers going along that's not what you want. You didn't tell them that was not what you wanted. You didn't tell them what you wanted. So they're opening some doors, trial doors, to see where you go and what you respond to. And good coaching is also a journey. And as you make that journey, you discover more and more that you're on the right path as these things come together from the past. And a good coach in a good session will never be in any given week or month where they thought they would be a week, a month, several months before, because the journey develops itself as you move along. I really think that's important. And we've covered a number of aspects of trust, but as Gerald said, it's a can of worms, and it's so full and involved and twisted together that we've only scratched the surface, and we'll probably revisit trust or aspects of it, like honesty and clarity and various other things that are there in the future. Thank you for joining us, folks, and come back and visit us regularly. In the comments to this, I hope all of us will visit our sites where this is out. We're streaming this out to multiple locations, and but the YouTube channel is the best place to go and get the previous items. They're all there, building up now. This will be the fourth one, and we'll keep posting them there so you'll be able to find them and pick up what you missed from before. We'll be here again next week, live in many places. Maestro, cue the music.